Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a major development in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. The precision strike carried out by Ukrainian forces that destroyed a key logistics route to Crimea. This event marks a turning point in the ongoing war and reveals how Ukraine continues to adapt its strategy. In this video, we'll explore what happened, why it matters, and how it could reshape the dynamics of the war in southern Ukraine. Ukraine's military confirmed that it conducted a precision strike against a key logistical corridor connecting Russian-occupied territories to Crimea. The route was reportedly essential for transporting ammunition, equipment, and reinforcements to Russian forces stationed across the peninsula. Destroying it means Russia's ability to sustain its troops in Crimea has taken a serious hit. The attack demonstrates Ukraine's growing ability to target deep inside Russian-held territory, something that was far more difficult at the start of the war. The logistics network feeding Crimea is vital to Russia's military operations. Since Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, Moscow has spent years building infrastructure to connect it directly to the Russian mainland. The Kerch Bridge was the centerpiece of that effort, serving as both a physical and symbolic link between Russia and the peninsula. However, with repeated Ukrainian strikes on the bridge and now the destruction of another key route, Russia's logistical network is under unprecedented pressure. Each new strike limits Russia's ability to move fuel, ammunition, and troops freely. This latest precision strike was not random. It fits into Ukraine's broader strategy of targeting supply chains, command centers, and infrastructure that sustain Russian occupation. Instead of only fighting large-scale battles, Ukraine is increasingly focusing on cutting the flow of resources that make those battles possible. The aim is to weaken Russia's ability to wage war over time, forcing logistical collapse before territorial collapse. The Ukrainian military has improved its strike capability with the help of Western supplied weapons, intelligence sharing, and domestically produced drones. Long-range missiles and advanced reconnaissance drones have allowed Kyiv to target critical nodes far behind enemy lines. These tools give Ukraine the ability to strike efficiently and accurately while minimizing waste and risk. The precision of the latest attack underscores just how much Ukraine's targeting systems have evolved. When logistics routes are destroyed, armies cannot function effectively. A modern military operation depends on continuous supply of fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and food. Without those essentials, vehicles can't move, soldiers can't fight, and bases can't operate. Ukraine understands this perfectly well, and that's why logistics has become one of its prime targets. By hitting Russia's supply routes, Ukraine forces its opponent to divert time, money, and manpower into repair and protection rather than offense. For Russia, this creates a major problem. Crimea is not self-sustaining militarily. It relies heavily on supply routes that run through occupied parts of southern Ukraine. When those routes are cut, Crimea becomes isolated and vulnerable. Even partial disruptions slow down deliveries and make operations more complicated. Trucks and trains are forced to reroute through longer, more exposed paths. Each reroute increases the chance of further attacks. It also means that supplies reach the front later or in smaller quantities. Another aspect of this development is psychological. Every successful Ukrainian strike inside Russian-held territory sends a message. It shows that no place is truly safe and that even heavily defended infrastructure can be hit. This undermines Russian morale and increases anxiety among troops stationed in Crimea and southern Ukraine. Soldiers start to doubt whether reinforcements and supplies will arrive on time. Meanwhile, for Ukrainian troops and citizens, such victories provide a strong morale boost and a renewed sense of hope that the fight is not only defensive but also strategic. The destruction of the logistics route also has economic consequences. Fuel shortages, disrupted transport, and damaged trade routes can affect local populations in occupied territories. Civilian prices rise, supplies become scarce, and public frustration grows. These pressures can create further instability in regions under Russian control, indirectly helping Ukraine by straining Russian administrative resources. This strike also reflects Ukraine's mastery of timing. Ukrainian forces often wait for moments when Russian supply convoys or storage depots are most active before launching precision strikes. By doing so, they maximize the impact, not only destroying infrastructure, but also wiping out critical supplies in transit. Timing, intelligence, and precision all combine to multiply the effect of a single strike. We also need to look at how this affects Russia's broader military strategy. Moscow's forces are heavily dependent on stable logistics networks to sustain operations in the south. Every time one of those networks is hit, Russia must adapt. Building new supply routes takes time, resources, and engineering capacity. Protecting them requires air defense, radar systems, and manpower that could have been used elsewhere. This constant adjustment drains the Russian military and makes large-scale offensives harder to sustain. From Ukraine's perspective, precision strikes are cost-effective compared to direct assaults. Instead of sacrificing troops in prolonged battles, Ukraine can weaken the enemy's capacity with fewer risks. When an enemy runs out of fuel or ammunition, even the strongest fortifications become fragile. This strategy focuses on undermining the foundations rather than fighting over every inch of ground. It's warfare designed to exhaust and disorganize, not just to conquer. The destruction of this logistics route to Crimea follows a series of successful Ukrainian operations targeting Russia's rear areas. In recent months, we've seen strikes on fuel depots, command centers, and air bases deep in occupied territory. Ukraine's intelligence capabilities have improved dramatically, thanks in part to advanced surveillance systems, satellite imagery, and information provided by local resistance groups. The coordination between these intelligence sources and Ukraine's strike forces has become one of Kyiv's strongest assets. There's also an important message to Ukraine's allies. Each successful precision strike demonstrates that Western support, in the form of weapons, training, and intelligence, is having tangible results. It reassures donors that their contributions are making a real difference on the battlefield. It also strengthens Ukraine's argument for receiving more advanced weapons systems capable of maintaining pressure on Russian logistics. For Russia, however, the situation becomes increasingly complex. The Kremlin must now defend not only the front lines, but also hundreds of kilometers of rear area infrastructure. That requires deploying air defense systems across a wider area, spreading resources thinner, and increasing vulnerability elsewhere. Even if Russia rebuilds the damaged logistics route, Ukraine has shown it can strike again. This creates a cycle of destruction and repair that drains Russia's war economy and erodes its operational endurance. On the political front, attacks like this also challenge Russia's narrative of control. The Kremlin has long portrayed Crimea as an unshakable part of Russia, safe from Ukrainian attacks. Each successful strike exposes that myth. It shows that Ukraine can reach Crimea at will, turning what Russia once called a fortress into a liability. This erodes the image of invincibility that the Kremlin uses for domestic propaganda. Looking at the broader regional implications, the weakening of Russian logistics in Crimea could alter dynamics across the entire southern front. Russian bases in the peninsula are crucial for supporting operations in Kherson and Zaporizhia regions. If those bases can no longer be reliably supplied, it limits Russia's ability to launch offensives or even hold existing positions. That could eventually open the door for further Ukrainian advances when conditions are right. However, Ukraine's success also raises the stakes. Each precision strike on critical infrastructure risks retaliation. Russia may respond with intensified missile attacks on Ukrainian cities or energy facilities. The war is therefore entering a more dangerous phase, one where both sides increasingly target infrastructure to weaken the other's endurance. This tit-for-tat escalation puts civilian populations at risk and adds urgency to diplomatic efforts aimed at reducing such exchanges. Still, from a purely strategic standpoint, Ukraine's approach appears to be working. By systematically degrading Russian logistics, Ukraine forces its enemy into a defensive posture. It prevents Russia from sustaining large offensives and gradually shifts the balance of power. Each successful strike compounds the previous one, creating cumulative strain on Russia's military machine. This precision strike also shows the value of adaptability in modern warfare. Ukraine has learned to integrate different technologies, drones, satellites, missiles, and cyber tools into a cohesive system. The combination of intelligence gathering and precise execution represents the future of combat. Wars are no longer decided solely by numbers, but by data, coordination, and agility. Ukraine's growing competence in these areas is reshaping the battlefield. It's also important to understand that precision strikes like this are not isolated incidents, but part of a long-term campaign. Ukraine is pursuing what some analysts call a deep battle strategy, hitting targets deep inside enemy lines to weaken their ability to fight at the front. The destruction of the logistics route to Crimea fits perfectly into this model. Each strike reduces Russia's flexibility and freedom of movement, slowly tightening the strategic noose. The effects of such strikes are cumulative. Every bridge destroyed, every depot hit, every route disrupted adds friction to Russia's operations. Over time, that friction becomes decisive. Even if individual strikes seem small, their collective impact can erode the sustainability of an entire campaign. That's the logic Ukraine is applying, and it's beginning to yield results. At the same time, Ukraine must maintain precision and caution. Logistics routes often pass through populated areas, and minimizing civilian harm remains crucial. So far, Ukraine's operations have largely focused on strictly military infrastructure, but maintaining that discipline is essential to preserve international support and moral legitimacy. The destruction of this key logistics route will likely force Russia to rethink its long-term presence in Crimea. The more difficult it becomes to supply the peninsula, the more costly its defense will be. If Ukraine continues to strike similar targets, Crimea could transform from an asset into a liability for Moscow. Maintaining it might drain more resources than it provides. For now, the world is watching closely. Each precision strike is more than just a battlefield event. It's a signal of shifting power, strategy, and technological competence. Ukraine's success shows how an underdog nation can challenge a larger military power through ingenuity, adaptability, and resilience. In the months ahead, we can expect Ukraine to continue targeting Russia's logistics with even more precision. Russia will likely respond by fortifying remaining routes, deploying additional air defenses, and increasing patrols. The war may turn increasingly into a contest of endurance and innovation, where success depends on who adapts faster. Ultimately, the destruction of the logistics route to Crimea is not just a tactical victory, but a symbol of Ukraine's determination. It demonstrates that even heavily defended, strategically critical locations can be reached and neutralized. It redefines the geography of the conflict and sends a clear message that the fight for control over logistics and infrastructure may decide the future of this war. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more updates and analysis on the ongoing developments. Stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.